My friends and I decided it would be fun to explore an old cemetery just outside of town. It was one of those late night, let's prove we're not scared kind of things. We'd all been talking about it for weeks, hyping ourselves up. When we finally went, it was a lot creepier than I expected. No moon, just a dim glow from our phones as we walked between the gravestones. The first hour or so was uneventful. We were mostly just goofing around, making dumb jokes to keep the mood light. But then we noticed someone standing near a large tombstone in the distance. We assumed it was another group messing with us, or maybe a caretaker who'd caught us trespassing. But when we got closer, the figure just stayed completely still, not moving an inch. We tried calling out to them, asking if they were okay, but got no response. My friend Jake, who's always the first to act tough, walked up closer. He stopped suddenly and said, "Guys, it's not a person, it's just a statue or something." We laughed it off and moved on, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As we kept walking, I noticed something strange. Every time we glanced back, that figure seemed to be in a different spot. Not drastically, but just a little closer than before. I figured it was just our nerves playing tricks on us, but then it started getting too weird to ignore. At one point, we all stopped when we heard what sounded like soft footsteps behind us. But when we turned, no one was there, just that figure, closer than ever. It wasn't a statue, it was someone, and they were messing with us. We were sure of it now. Panic started setting in as we realized this wasn't just a prank. Jake lost his cool first and shouted at the figure to stop playing games. Still nothing. That's when we decided to book it back to the car. As we ran, I swear I heard more footsteps, like someone sprinting just a few feet behind us. I didn't dare turn around, but the others confirmed later that they heard it too. We finally reached the car, out of breath, and piled in. As we drove off, I glanced back one last time. The figure was now at the gate, standing motionless, just watching us leave. We never found out who or what it was. To this day, I can't shake the memory of that figure silently following us, never getting too close, but always there, always watching. A few weeks back, a group of us decided to hang out at this old cemetery outside of town. It was supposed to be just for fun, a dare from one of the guys. It was just one of those dumb things to do on a boring night. When we got there, we noticed how rundown the place was. The gates were rusty, and the gravestones cracked, and weeds were everywhere. Still, we figured we'd walk around, tell some scary stories, then head out. After about 20 minutes, Chris, who was always up for a challenge, spotted an old mausoleum. It wasn't wide open, but the door was slightly cracked, and you could see the darkness inside. He dared us to check it out, but no one really wanted to. I told him to drop it, but of course, Chris wasn't going to let it go. He squeezed through the opening and disappeared inside. The rest of us hung back, waiting for him to come out with some dumb joke or trying to scare us. But minutes passed and Chris didn't come back out. We started calling his name, but nothing. Then we heard what sounded like faint scraping noise coming from inside. At that point, we were all getting nervous. I decided to go in after him. The door was heavy, but I pushed it open enough to slip inside. The smell hit me first, damp and musty. I could barely see anything except for my phone's light. I called out to Chris, but all I heard was that scraping sound again, like something being dragged across stone. I took a few more steps, and then my foot hit something soft. I shined my light down, and there was Chris, sitting against the wall, breathing heavily. He looked pale and freaked out. Before I could ask what was wrong, he just whispered that we needed to get out of there, now. I helped him up, and we both made our way out. The others were waiting by the car, and when they saw Chris, they knew something was wrong. He didn't say much on the ride back. He just kept mumbling about someone else being in there and how he wasn't alone. Later that night, we asked him again what happened in the mausoleum. All he said was that he'd seen someone, a man, sitting in the shadows. The guy didn't move or say anything. He just sat there, staring at Chris with this dead expression. Chris thought it was a statue at first, until he saw it blink. That's when he heard the scraping noise and realized the man was dragging something, a rusty shovel, along the floor. Chris bolted out of there, and as he did, he heard the man get up and started walking toward him. But when I found him, no one else was in there. The place was empty, except for some old junk and cobwebs. We didn't go back to that cemetery. Chris doesn't like talking about it, and honestly, I don't blame him. I still have no idea if it was some homeless guy living in there, a prank, or something worse. But whatever it was, Chris wasn't imagining things. I'll never forget how shook he looked when he came out of that place. A few days ago, my friend Lucas convinced me and a couple of others to check out an old cemetery near town. He'd heard about it from some guy at work who said it was abandoned and a good spot to hang out. We were bored, so we figured, why not? When we got there, the place looked worse than I imagined. Overgrown grass, broken headstones, and a rusty gate barely hanging on. It was dead quiet too. We parked just outside and hopped the fence because, of course, the gate was chained shut. Lucas thought it'd be fun to explore, so we wandered around for a bit, cracking jokes and messing around. At one point, we found a small, half-collapsed crypt. The door was locked with a rusted padlock, but someone had clearly tried to break in at some point. It looked like one more good kick would do the job. Lucas joked about someone going inside, and I decided to be the one to do it. I kicked at the door until it creaked open. The inside was damp and musty, with stone shelves along the walls where coffins had probably been stored. Most were either empty or broken. There was nothing in there except rotting leaves and dirt, at least at first. Lucas and I went in, while the others stayed back, shining their phone lights through the doorway. It was just a small room with stone shelves for coffins, most of which were broken or empty. We didn't find anything interesting, just some old debris, until Lucas spotted a hole in the floor. It looked like someone had dug down into the dirt, maybe to rob a grave or something. Lucas was all for climbing in to see what was down there, but I wasn't so sure. The hole wasn't big, just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Against my better judgment, I watched as Lucas slipped down into the dirt tunnel. A few seconds later, his light vanished. I called out to him, but he didn't answer. All I heard was this shuffling noise. For a moment, I thought he was messing with me. I was ready to leave when I heard him scream. Not a scared yell, an actual scream. My heart was pounding as I leaned closer to the hole, shining my light down. I saw Lucas, but he wasn't alone. There was another guy in there with him, wearing filthy clothes and holding a metal pipe. His waist was covered in dirt and grime, and he looked like he hadn't seen sunlight in years. Lucas was scrambling to get away, but the guy kept swinging at him, blocking his escape. I yelled for the others to help, and they rushed in. We managed to pull Lucas out of the hole, but the guy didn't follow. He just stared at us from below, clutching that pipe like it was the only thing he had left in the world. We ran out of there, not stopping until we got back to the car. Lucas was shaken up, and none of us knew what to say. We drove straight home and never talked about it again.